Welcome, Dr. Dana Culp, to the Aging Fiercely podcast. I am really excited to dive into this conversation because A, it's such a big topic, but B, you are a doctor. You've been a doctor for 25 years, and you yourself had, made the decision to focus primarily on menopause and perimenopause for women because of the experience that your clients have had, but also the experiences that you've personally had. And I think as a doctor, like us hearing that like a doctor is struggling through this phase of life, it's almost like, okay, all right, it's not just me, it's like there's obviously something that's slightly broken that we need to have a conversation about. And, so you've taken your practice and now you are exclusively working with women.
Exactly. I did family medicine for a really long time and took care of women in all of the different phases of life, including
Hmm.
this phase of, midlife, all the hormonal changes. Loved that so much. And then for, like you mentioned, things for myself started not going quite right anymore. And
Yeah.
I didn't recognize it. And I also didn't know what to do. I thought life is complicated
Right.
and this is probably what's going on as far as mood changes, lack of resiliency, struggling with like a lot of brain fog,
Hmm.
weight gain like crazy, just these things that we attribute to, oh, this is getting older.
Yeah.
And I didn't make those connections when it was happening to me that I could see in my patients because
Hmm.
we just keep going, we just keep pushing and going. So what actually ended up being the tipping point for me where I thought, oh, I think I need to get some help here, was my blood pressure was going up, which I'd never had blood pressure problems before. So I knew I wasn't sleeping. So I thought there was a connection there. I'm not sleeping, so my blood pressure is going up. And I did, thank goodness, recognize that there potentially could be a hormonal piece to that. Otherwise, I just would have done like so many other women, just trying to put a patch on the various
Right.
symptoms. I thought, I think there's something with hormones. And that's as far as I went. So I'm not sleeping. My blood pressure's going up. I feel terrible. Life is not that pleasurable. And I wait, so I make an appointment with my primary care provider and I wait weeks and weeks to get that appointment,
Hmm.
as we do in
Yeah.
the healthcare
Normal.
system.
Yeah.
And when I got to the appointment, she immediately said she was not comfortable with this area of medicine. She didn't think what was happening to me had anything to do with hormones. Here's a blood pressure pill, and have a nice day.
Okay. Nice.
Uh, to say that that was a devastating moment is kind of an understatement.
Yeah.
And I went out to my car. I started crying. I was
Oh, I
so
get
dismissed.
that.
It was such a
Yeah.
moment of just kind of I don't even know how to say it, like reality kind of split. And
Yeah.
I thought, wow, I just was completely dismissed and given a blood pressure pill.
Yeah.
And I want to stop there and mention that you made a comment about what I do for a living and that I struggle to get care. And I want to just point out that I walked into that appointment as a contemporary with this provider. I
Yeah.
take care of the same patient population. We have similar educations.
Hmm.
I know the language. I know what to ask for. I know how to, you know what I mean, to work the healthcare
Yeah.
system. And I was dismissed.
Right. I know.
And
I that like blows my mind.
in that moment, I thought if that happened to me as kind of like an equal with this woman, what do other women have to go through to get help? You know, you walk into your medical appointments and there's already this power dynamic
Yeah.
difference. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
They're the expert. They tell me what to do. And a lot of us don't feel like we have a voice. So
Yeah.
I just like to point that out that that was really what started to light a fire under me about
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
other women.
absolutely. Like that's definitely something I want to touch upon. We don't touch upon it right here, but like just that whole power dynamic and how someone like, who doesn't know the doctor system at all or the medical system and, we don't know the right questions to ask or we don't think we know the right questions to ask, how to like, kind of work that relationship in our favor. So yeah, that's just something I want to touch on, but we don't do it right here.
Yeah, no,
I think
I
it's
really,
important.
really want to touch on that because I think it's really important. We walk into
Yeah,
our medical appointments and what we're told, we assume is the way it is.
it's it.
And
Right.
yeah, and so I want to circle back to that, but just a little bit more about my
Hmm.
story.
Yeah.
So from there, I went to two very high-profile OBGYNs because, aren't OBGYNs the ones who take care of women?
Right, right.
And
They're
the
gonna
first
know.
one gave me a one-size-fits-all, very old protocol. I later learned, I didn't know at the time.
Oh,
And that was not sufficient. So I waited a few more months and saw a Stanford, highly respected OBGYN. The same thing happened again. I got one size fits all. But at
yeah.
this point, I pushed back a little bit. What about this? What about this dose? What about these options? And she said, absolutely not.
Hmm.
And
Ah,
and so I walked away with my prescription that was again quite inadequate, and that's when
oh,
the fire was completely lit under me.
yeah.
At that point, I read every study I could. I took courses and certification classes and went to
Yeah.
conferences and joined groups with like with experts in the menopause and midlife hormonal change field and got so educated
Yeah. Oh
and
my God,
and
that's
just
great.
learned everything that I could about what is the evidence and what is best practice at this point. And so then I'll end my story with I did end up with a fourth provider, and she still is with me today. She primary care.
Oh,
I
good.
went into that appointment and I was ready.
Yeah.
I knew exactly what I wanted and what I wanted to talk about. And
Yeah.
she stopped me and said, I don't know anything about this. I feel, not prepared. She goes, but I want to learn. And
Oh,
so,
that's so refreshing.
yes. And
Oh my
together we
gosh.
came up
Like,
with a great plan. And I am feeling like myself again.
oh, that's amazing. Like that is like a
Yes.
true success story. Like,
Exactly. I think that a lot of providers just don't realize what they don't know. They get trained in school,
yeah.
especially primary care. Because I did that for so long, you know a little bit about everything.
Right.
And that doesn't mean folks don't have advanced training in certain areas,
Hmm.
but patients should not assume that they know everything about everything.
Yeah.
It just isn't possible. And but yeah, so I have a fabulous provider, and that experience really informed how I changed my practice. So
Yeah.
I now exclusively take care of women in this stage of life, whether it's perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause,
Right.
and
Yeah.
all the things that go with that.
Yeah, which can be a very broad spectrum because you can be dealing with somebody who's like in their mid 30s and
Mhm.
they have no idea or wouldn't even think that perimenopause is something that they're dealing with.
Exactly. That's why these conversations that we're having and that you have are so important because we do sometimes as women just push through and think if I try harder, if I just do
Yes.
better,
Yeah.
that, we blame ourselves.
Yeah.
And without these conversations, being able to look outside yourself and see, oh, maybe there is something going on that I can do something about. It's
Yeah.
not that I'm broken. It's not that, I'm not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
And so I love that we're talking about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact that you said that we naturally, our gut is that we're not trying hard enough. And that kind of goes in a lot of different categories in our lives that we just feel like, okay, I just don't have the discipline or I don't have the time or I'm not trying hard enough. Like it's a me problem where it's really not. It's just a system that is just kind of, a little old and a little scary for a lot of women to just go in and be like, oh, I know the questions that I need answers to. It's intimidating. Like we had said, it's that little power difference that you can actually feel.
Yes.
So I think the easier thing is to be like, I just need to try harder. But it's also like, well, then it's so daunting when you're looking at the whole medical field and you're just like, well, how can I even, say this to the doctor without insulting them? Like we're so afraid of like insulting or, being a difficult client or a difficult patient. So, yeah, I appreciate that you said it's not that we need to try harder. We don't. We're not the ones that are broken. Like, we just need to take a deep breath and be like, okay, I can ask questions. I'm totally entitled and allowed to ask questions. And,
Absolutely.
so what would be some of the questions that women could ask and feel confident asking their doctors?
Yeah, this is so for me so important. Part of my message is
Yeah.
for women to be able to better advocate for themselves
Yes.
in these settings, especially when they feel ill prepared. And there is that dynamic,
Yeah, it's
that power
intimidating.
dynamic. Yeah. So the very first thing I would say is try to be with in front of the right type of provider. So many of us have our very beloved, trusted primary care or family medicine doc, and that's always a great place to start if you have the trust and you already have that
Right.
relationship.
Right. If it's already there, yes.
Go somewhere where you feel supported. But I want women to recognize that when they go into any of these situations, it doesn't matter the specialty or what they're going to be seen for, to recognize that they are part of the team. They
Yes.
are an equal part of the team,
Yeah.
and so we call that shared decision making,
Okay. I like that.
and that's something foundational. No matter what you're going through, is you are part of the team, and you get to make these decisions based
Yeah.
on getting educated about what's going on with you. So that's the first thing. So start with somebody that you really trust, hopefully, and the questions that I think are very important to ask are, especially okay, so we're talking about midlife hormonal changes.
Mhm.
What kind of training do you have with this particular area? And
That's
that
a
is a
great
very,
question.
it's very fair. It's very
It's
fair.
yes.
Yes, and anybody who really is has that heart for patients, and we all start out that way. Not everybody ends
Right.
that way, but they will understand that. So, what kind of
Yeah.
training do you have in this particular area? The next thing is, how do you individualize the care? Now, that
Oh,
sounds like a very simple question, but it is
yeah.
big. That is a big question. And what it speaks to is that one size fits all. You
Mhm.
walk in with your past medical history and your family history and the medications you're on and the symptoms you're having and what your goals are. That could be very different from mine. And you and I are going to have the same exact care plan. I
Right.
don't think so. So that is a really simple question,
Yeah.
and I think very important to ask. The next question I would ask is, how do we assess? How do we follow up? How do we assess how things are going? And that will speak to monitoring, being able to adjust, and things like that. So
Yeah.
those three questions, I think, are very foundational, and I
Yeah.
want every woman to feel comfortable, getting those right in their head.
Yeah,
And
no,
feeling
yeah, I think if you
how
walk
to
in with just like three questions, I think that's manageable. You don't feel as overwhelmed or intimidated because those are really valid questions to ask. And I love how you're pinpointing like how do you deal with individuals because, right, we're all different. We are all experiencing this in our own way. And it's, I work with a lot of women in the fitness industry because I am a personal trainer. And so I'm dealing with a lot of women right now in midlife. And it's it's hard because you're just like you want to the rules seem like it's get this much amount of protein, work out this much, eat this kind of diet, but it's so individual because some women are on, hormone replacements or they're on antidepressants or they're on medication. And then they're like, I'm doing everything right and I can't lose the weight. And it's because the doctors are telling them, move more, eat less. You're going to be fine with 50 grams of protein. And it's just like this blanket statement that doesn't deal with the woman at all. And I have quite a few women who are just so frustrated and they don't know what to do. And the doctors are telling them, have a vegetarian diet, stop eating meat. And again, it's just blanketed advice. So I think that that is a really quality question to ask. Like, how do you deal with the individual? So,
Exactly. And I love that you're giving these examples because, you can walk in and maybe weight is just the thing you really, really are struggling with and is top of your list, or maybe
mhm.
sleep, or maybe mood changes. So I think that when a woman comes in and depending on her symptoms, depending on her goals,
Yeah,
that's where you start. Not my bias, not my preferences, a vegetarian diet or
right.
just all of these things. And keeping in mind, the providers, they're just people too.
Yeah,
And so they have an education, but they also have their own personal biases. And that's going back to recognizing that you're part of this team. No, I'm not going to, follow XYZ diet. That doesn't fit with my lifestyle. So
yeah,
let's get back to me.
yeah. No, definitely. There are so many symptoms that come up, right? So I'm just curious, like on a whole, how do you work with a woman who comes to you? Are you looking at the whole picture? So meaning like stress, like relationships, because all of those are part of midlife as well. Like it's such a huge transitional phase, especially if you're tacking on kids who are leaving the house. So moms have that it's an emotional effect as well. So yes, your hormones are, but your life is also transitioning. And trying a lot of the language out there it's turning to your second act, right? So now it's like you're getting back to yourself, right? So it's just such a transition that I wonder how much of that plays into how you work with women.
Mm. Um, yes, there's a lot of moving parts
Yeah.
at this stage. So the where I start with women is the foundation, the foundational pieces. First, I want to know what's going on and what is troubling you. What is the tipping point for you? Most of us can recognize that with our very complicated lives, maybe we have kids, maybe we have a really busy job or a busy
Yeah.
career, maybe we have these transitional things, aging parents,
Right.
empty nesting. I actually
Yes.
have many women in their late 40s with little ones at home.
Yeah.
There's like, we all
Yeah.
come in with a lot of things. So first I want to know what is happening. That is how are you perceiving it? Because my perception
Yes.
of what you should be focusing on isn't the same. So that's the first thing. And then back to that foundational approach. I think women, we are amazing and we can juggle all those balls and we are very resilient for a very long time. And when we're not, that makes me want to look a little bit more upstream to see if something has shifted that has caused us to be less resilient. To say that it's just stress or to say that it's just life. For me, that's not good enough. And that doesn't mean that maybe that is exactly what's going on.
Right.
But
Totally.
what if there is something else going on that is making it really hard to juggle those balls anymore? So
Yeah.
going upstream, the foundational approach is I want to know um, what are some of your lab values doing? There's some things that can start changing for us that can really impact our energy, our mood, our weight, all of those things.
Yeah.
So some basic lab values and also hormones. I see every woman through that hormonal lens.
Hmm.
We are not tiny little men. We are these women that have, ever since we were, early teens,
Yeah.
driven by our hormones. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that it's a huge part of
Right.
our lives. So looking at a woman through that lens,
Yeah.
and if I could change one thing in healthcare, it would be to always have that be one of the screenings for a woman. We screen for depression and we screen for, bad habits and we
Right.
screen for a lot of things just standard in our healthcare system. And I wish based on age, we screened for where a woman is with her hormones because that is to me, such a low bar to see if there's something going off the rails
Hmm.
that we could then balance. And then she has her resiliency back. She has her joy back. She can think straight. She has her
Right.
energy. And
Right.
then so many other things can self-correct.
Right. Right. So can you do that? Like I'm not fully knowledgeable at all in this. Can you test your hormone levels? Like my thinking was that they always fluctuate, so it's hard to get an understanding. But can you do that and like see, oh, you know, there's I don't even know. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
even know
no,
what you would see.
that is such a good question, and it's definitely a hotly debated topic. So, depending on where a woman is in this journey, if she's
Uh-huh.
perimenopausal, very early, like you mentioned, maybe in her 30s,
Right.
and not menopausal yet, you're right. Those lab values will have a different value, but I do think it's important to look at them
Yeah.
because sometimes there are outliers that we can identify. So I think without having that as a piece of the puzzle is a mistake.
Right.
So no, there might not be anything that jumps out. We hear all the time, oh, well, your labs are normal. Good for
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
So go
Nothing's
on.
wrong.
Yes, go home and eat less, move more, and manage your
Yes.
stress. Yeah,
Yes.
thanks. That really helps. But I do think it's important to check because sometimes
Yeah.
there are some
Right.
outliers. And then those other cardiometabolic factors definitely have to be looked at. And I always say, hormones aren't the cause of everything and they're not the cure for everything. So we do
Right.
have to have other foundational bases. And then with that said, we do know that perimenopausal symptoms, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And when we eliminate other glaring reasons for feeling the way we do, I say we look at hormones and treat to the symptoms, see how much improvement we can get
Hmm.
with treating to those symptoms. And if you're still feeling whatever it is, I can't sleep, or the different
Right.
symptoms, I don't need to go into those. Then you can manage those other ways. But I just think the foundational approach of looking at the hormones and the other, basic lab values are just imperative, and
Right.
and always starting there.
Always
And
starting with the hormones.
I do, and of course I come from a medical model, and it's just such an easy fix.
Hmm.
Instead of having a woman suffer for years and years of how she's supposed to manage her stress better, what does that mean? And
Right.
that's not to say, maybe we need therapy or maybe we need, help with juggling our very busy lives.
Right.
But just to dismiss a woman in those
Right.
ways is just it's awful. And so many of us struggle for a long time and blame ourselves
Yeah.
when providers take that approach. So that's my philosophy.
Right. So I'm just curious because I am definitely going through perimenopause, but I don't feel like my symptoms are all over the place. Like, so I'm sure there's women out there who don't really have the ups and the downs.
Mhm.
So for women like that, would hormone replacement even be something that we'd want to consider, even though we're not really kind of like suffering? We don't feel like we have like the mood swings, or maybe there's some hot flashes. Definitely getting those. But, outside of that, like it's nothing really debilitating. Like, do you even still recommend hormone replacement if your symptoms are mild?
Such a good question. You asked the best questions.
Thanks.
That is such a great question. So, I would encourage women to look at this topic under two buckets or umbrellas. One is when they're thinking of hormone replacement and all the hormonal changes. One is symptom management. I don't feel like myself, or this is going on, or whatever the symptom is, and thinking of hormone replacement for symptom management. And then the other bucket is long-term health. We
Hmm.
do know that the earlier a woman starts hormone replacement therapy, the better the long-term health outcomes are.
Okay.
For instance, estrogen is FDA approved for the prevention of osteoporosis. We
Okay.
know that we can protect our cardiovascular health, our brain health, future you
Okay.
regarding hormones and not ending up in a state of deficiency, managing
Right.
those long term. And we know the earlier we start, the better those outcomes are. So with that said,
Oh, that's
under the with those two buckets, a woman who is not feeling that bad. I feel okay. I feel like
okay.
myself. I'm managing my life. I'm noticing some changes, but it's okay. That woman does not need hormone replacement therapy. She needs to be educated about what to watch for and what her options are and feel like she's fully informed. So at some point, if the symptoms are just like, gosh, I just am not myself anymore,
Right.
then that's when she might want to consider. So no, I don't think every woman needs to be on hormone replacement
Okay.
at a certain age or at a certain symptom level. I think it's very individual, and a woman knows when she doesn't feel like herself anymore. And it can be for many reasons. A
Hmm.
lot of women show up in my office, weight, the weight, like you mentioned, being, what you do for a living, the weight, no matter what they do, they cannot move the needle.
Yeah.
And it is just very, very upsetting. And it's also something that's really quantifiable. I know my clothes don't fit. I know I don't feel like I have the energy anymore. So that's kind of something that's easy to say, okay, something's different.
Hmm.
The symptoms that are harder to kind of put your thumb on are usually the emotional things
Hmm.
or I don't have the same excitement about life anymore. How do you
Right.
measure that? And only a woman can answer that question for herself. So So yes, there's no arbitrary age to start, but I
Right.
love that this is becoming such a big conversation, so women can see themselves, through this transition and get really excited about all the things that they can do to feel like themselves as well as to protect their future health.
Right.
I hope that answered your
No,
question. It
yeah,
was,
no,
it was a little
definitely.
long-winded.
No, because I never thought about it for the long-term benefits. Like, I don't think that's something that at least I'm reading in the mainstream media about how it can actually help you long term, which is really interesting because, right, the whole brain health and, I have parents who, my father passed away from Alzheimer's, and my mother has, short-term memory loss right now. So the brain health is like super important. So if there's any, correlation, and obviously hormones are, they run through and through the body, right? So if you are depleted, how is that going to show up, let's say, 20 years from now, if, someone who doesn't have the symptoms but could have benefited, taking it now and would have helped you more in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's just not something that I ever heard about. So I appreciate that little gem that you just handed over.
Yeah, there are women that just cruise through this period of transition and they think, well, I did fine.
Yeah,
I it was,
right.
and I say, wow, first of all, you're a unicorn and that's awesome. I mean, but then the next question is, like you just said, you said it perfectly. How about your long-term health?
Yeah,
And that is definitely a consideration. So yeah, there's no arbitrary
yeah,
time, but women should know that there are those two umbrellas of how they should be looking at their hormonal health,
yeah.
throughout their life.
And there's no harm really in if you were to start hormone replacement therapy and then decide it's not for you and get off of it. Like there's no harm in that, right? It's not like
Absolutely
you
not.
need to like wean yourself off or something.
Absolutely not. So the gold standard and best practice now is using what we call bioidentical hormones. So
Okay.
what that means, it's kind of a marketing term, but what it means is they're body identical, bioidentical, the molecules that your body recognizes as their own. So these
Hmm.
are these are hormones you've made, your whole
Right.
life.
Okay.
Now I'm what we used to do 20 years ago, 25 years ago, those were synthetic hormones. They behave very differently in the body, and that's a little bit of a different question. But that's not what we do
Uh,
now, as far as anybody who's up on the current literature and best practice. So to
okay.
answer your question more, I'm trying to build you a watch here. So I can get a little long-winded, but
That's fine. No, good.
so if a woman did trial the hormone replacement, they're just the molecules your body already recognizes.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean some women, have the wrong dose or the wrong route or don't really feel that much better.
Right.
And if they said, you know what, this isn't for me, and I think every woman needs to make that decision for herself. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter what I say, it doesn't matter what the literature says. This is very personal, and every woman should be able to make their own decision about their own body. So, yes, they can absolutely stop. Now, I have seen many women who have had their hormones stopped by their provider. You are now this magical arbitrary age, and you're too old for hormones, and they cut
Mm.
them off. I've seen that happen so many times, and they come to me with their life falling apart. To be cut off
Oh,
abruptly like that is, I think, so cruel and so. I don't think the providers were intending to be cruel. I don't think they understood. But
wow.
old thinking was like when you turn 60 or when you're 10 years past menopause, now you can't have hormones and they get cut off and they
Oh my
come to me.
gosh.
And I can think of one, I mean, I've seen this happen so many times. It's very sad.
Oh,
But one woman who stands out to me the most is she had turned 60 and she's this amazing, executive. She's just, taking on the second chapter of life like crazy,
hmm.
beautiful, wonderful marriage. Just her life is incredible. And her provider cut her off, and she came to me almost a year later, and she had dropped out of the workforce. Her marriage was hanging by a thread.
Oh my
She was
gosh.
just like a shell of her former
Oh,
self. And and we got her back going again because the science is very clear. There's no reason to be cut off.
Oh my
And she just blossomed and bloomed again, and it
gosh.
was so incredible. I could cry
Oh
right now
my
thinking about it, but
gosh.
I've seen this so many times. And
Oh,
so going back to your original question, can I just stop? Absolutely. But in a situation like that, I would say let's be not cruel and maybe wean somebody off so they could
right.
make these mental and physical transitions and get used to it if that's their choice.
Right, right,
But just stopping if you have had great hormone levels just isn't,
right.
just be a little gentler is my point.
Right, right. Oh, that's so horrible. I never even knew that that was a thing that at certain age they're like, "All right, you're done." Like, what is that? Like, where does
Exactly.
that even come from?
That came from really outdated, old literature that was probably the last of that nonsense probably was about 25 years ago. So that tells you that some providers that they might be amazing providers,
Right.
but they don't know everything about everything. And
Yeah.
that's what they learned in medical school 25 years ago
Right.
and never stayed up to
Oh
date
my
on the
gosh. That's
so
crazy. That's like even more reason to just really know the right questions to ask. Because if she was feeling great and doing fine,
yes,
oh, that's horrible. I hate
yes.
hearing that. Oh, okay.
But no, yes, but not to be a downer.
No.
I think that's empowering to know. Back
Yeah.
to going into that doctor's appointment, and there's a difference in the power dynamic, and
Yeah.
assuming what you're being told is correct, uh,
Right.
and it's not always. So a woman who has questions about this stage of life, or whether she's 35 or 75,
Hmm.
um, has to unfortunately work hard to make sure she's sitting in front of the right person
Yeah.
to be able to tend to this part of her care. You can find out if you're in the right place a couple of ways. One is if somebody does have advanced training in this area,
Hmm.
somebody like myself and some of my amazing colleagues who
Yeah.
stay up on the research, and this is what we do for, this is all we do.
Hmm.
So, but sometimes it's hard to find somebody like that.
Yeah.
Luckily, we do have telehealth now, which is amazing. We're not stuck with one geographic location, just
Hmm.
say you live in a rural area or a less populated area, and there's just not all the specialists. But now we have
Right.
telehealth. So you
Right.
can see a provider that's all the way across the state or in another state. So that is amazing. Um, or there's a couple of other resources to look into. Seeing somebody who is certified in this area doesn't mean that it's always going to be a great match, but that's
Right.
a great place to start.
Right. It's a
So for
starting
instance,
point.
exactly. So for instance, the Menopause Society, they have a registry of folks that they have certified or have done advanced training.
Hmm.
Heather Hirsch, who is a very, very prominent internal medicine physician who also has a provider training.
Okay.
Yeah, she's amazing. She has her own directory. Ishwish has a directory. So there's a few of these huge
Okay.
organizations that you can look up and find
Right.
somebody in your area or in your state. Um,
And you
and
do you work with just California residents and Nevada residents? Is that
yeah, currently I'm licensed in California and Nevada, and so my practice is telehealth. So I see women from across the whole state, and but with that, and we're very quickly expanding east. The 11
right?
Western states we will be licensed in here soon, but I. I'm always happy to refer folks. I belong to a network of amazing specialists that do what I do. We meet every
Hmm.
month and we share,
Oh, that's
tough
so great.
tough cases or best practices. And so I do know that they have this advanced training and they're up on the literature. So I refer people all the time to my colleagues, across the country.
Yeah. And then what about, because I think I was trying to work with somebody, but I couldn't because I was in New York.
Mm.
Is New York some kind of holdout? Like,
Oh,
like,
well, do you know what the issue was?
and I was just curious. I wanted to talk to her about hormone replacement therapy, but I didn't want to go to my OBG because I didn't really get the answers. Again, typical, I just didn't get what I want. And a woman referred me to this doctor that she works, but she lives in New Hampshire. So she was able to work with
Oh,
her. Me being in New York, the doctor couldn't even have a conversation with me. because I was in New York.
Okay, yeah, there's two things about that. One is no, we have to practice in the state we're licensed in and can prescribe in, assuming it's somebody who has, prescribing
Right.
privileges. So yes, but I also consult with people outside of the area as far as doing that comprehensive assessment and going through all of the options, all of the risk benefit analysis, being very clear on my recommendations,
Uh-huh.
whether it's a medication, what dose, what cadence of starting them, what kind of follow-up testing you need to do, like very, very specific. And
Okay.
then the patient can take that note and take it to their
Ah,
local trusted whichever,
okay.
so yes and no.
Right.
There wasn't
That's
anything
great.
wrong with New York. It's just they might not have understood that they can consult with you, but not carry out the plan if they're not
Right.
licensed in your state.
Can
So
they do labs or no?
it likely not,
Okay.
because those are orders.
Okay.
So you need to be licensed in the state that you are writing orders. So labs,
Okay.
prescriptions, things like that. But back to that consultation, it can be listed very clearly of what you need. And in medicine, we do that all the time, especially
Okay.
in family medicine. I would often carry out the orders or the suggestions, I should say,
Uh-huh.
of the specialist. Because once
Okay.
they weigh in and they, have their expert consultation, then I'd feel comfortable maybe in an area that
Right.
I wasn't as familiar with. And we
Right.
we do that all the time.
Yeah. So I could have a consult with you and then take what you created and take that to my OBGYN.
Absolutely.
And she can like run labs or whatever she has to do
Mhm.
or give me a
All of the
prescription.
suggestions. Yeah,
Yeah.
and oftentimes, especially family medicine, they're super grateful for that direction
I'm
because,
sure.
because they everybody wants to help their patients, but sometimes they feel like they're kind of out of their elements.
Yeah.
So we do that all the time in family medicine.
But even like that, that's encouraging to know too. Like you're not insulting your doctor by bringing in another doctor, like because
It shouldn't be that way. And if they are, then that's a very specific issue with that provider. But
yeah.
back to, we get into this line of work because we want to help people, and
Mhm.
having that humility that you can't possibly know everything about everything.
Yeah.
Hopefully we stay humble enough to recognize that and work collaboratively with our colleagues to just make sure our patients have the best care possible.
So that being said, how can people find you? Where can they reach you? Like what's all your info?
All of my info. Well, the practice is called Thrive Midlife Medicine, and the website is thrivemidlifemed.com. That website is pretty robust,
Okay.
has a lot of great QA sections. There's a really great perimenopause quiz on there. So if
Okay.
somebody is thinking, could this possibly be what's going on? I don't want to
Okay.
embarrass myself going to my doctor's office if I'm not
Right.
sure. And the quiz, it only takes a couple minutes, but you get the results right away, and it can really give you a nice launching off place.
Okay.
Um, so the website is great. And of course all the socials,
Right.
Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and I think there's other ones. I'm not that savvy with those
Right. I know.
things.
There's just, yeah, it
But
keeps growing.
yes, but there's a lot of good informational pieces on there. I know for my website, I am one of the few that takes insurance.
Oh, that's
Yes,
amazing.
including Medicare. So the vast
Great.
majority of specialists in this space do not take insurance, and
Yeah.
I understand. I really do. It is so frustrating dealing with
Yeah.
insurance companies.
Yeah.
But I already, because of what happened to me with my own experience, and then I see this every day, and I also provide specialty services for a local, very rural community where they really don't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
That I already realized there's so many barriers to care in general, and then you add this very specific, population, and there's just not a lot of resources. So I just felt compelled that I didn't want finances to be yet another barrier to this kind
Yeah.
of care. So I do take all of the main,
That's
the big
amazing.
national insurers. So on the website, they're all listed there,
Oh, that's
and
so great.
um,
And are you
so yeah.
accepting new clients or?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
And back to your question is if for some reason I, can't, whether it's out of state or
Hmm.
say like a very closed system, like a closed HMO, I regularly do those consultations that we talked about, and very clear on the details, and
Yeah,
then
no, that's
take that to
great.
your own trusted provider to get the care that you
Oh
need.
my God,
And
that's
then
amazing.
message if there's questions, or my I would love to take care of all the women,
I know.
but but my practice is just one practice and there's only so many
Yeah,
hours in the day. So my overriding goal, and that's like why you and I are having this conversation, and I do so much speaking and so many educational workshops,
it's so
is
great.
I just want women to be able to have this conversation, understand that they have so much power in this stage of
Yes,
life, so much hope. Like this can be the most exciting time of life. It's
totally.
We often think of when we're younger, at least we hear, oh, wait till you're older or
Yeah.
whatever, and you are envisioning this slow slide into
Yeah.
deterioration and irrelevancy,
I
and
hate
it is not that
it.
way at all. It
No.
can be such an exciting time.
Oh
So
my God, absolutely.
yeah. So just that I want women to have this education, and if they want to be my client or they can be, that would be
Yes.
wonderful. But I just want to get them the care that they need so they can thrive in this time of life.
Yes, no, exactly. And that is exactly why I call this podcast Aging Fiercely, because it doesn't mean that getting older means we have to deteriorate.
No.
We have a choice. And yeah, no, oh my God, I've loved this conversation. Thank you so, so much. It's been just a wealth of info.
Yes,
So
I've
I
been
appreciate it.
really, really happy to be invited on your podcast. I love
Yes,
your
this is
podcast.
so
I'm a very
great.
fast fan.
Amazing. I'm gonna put all your notes and all your stuff. I'm gonna put those three questions too,
Good.
in the show notes for sure, because I think that's great to go into your doctor like feeling confident and feeling like this is coming from a doctor who says that you can ask these questions and it's okay. Like
Absolutely.
feel confident and do
Yes.
it. So, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure. I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. So,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Such a blessing to be on this with you.